Good morning. My name is Anjali Gulati. I'm a senior economics major at Morgan State University and intern at Pearl this summer, where the Department of Natural Resources is funding research and two surveys regarding recreational boating in Maryland, exploring the potential unmet needs of transient boaters at marina facilities. I'll be starting today by telling you briefly about boating in Maryland and its economic impacts. The introduction will include information about the BIG program and siting considerations for marina expansion. We'll then talk about the survey we've created this summer, how each survey relates to aspects of the literature reviewed, and then how the data collected can be used to assess the potential unmet needs of transient boaters. The DNR pays attention to where shoreline development is conducive. Some popular destinations for boating in Maryland include Chesapeake Bay, Patuxent and Potomac Rivers, Severn and West Rivers, Ocean City, and Assateague Island. There are over 125,000 state-registered vessels, with each boat generating an average of $9,023 in economic impacts. Here on the right, there's a map indicating the 10 most popular boating destinations along the Chesapeake Bay. The literature reviewed on recreational boating's economic impacts largely used the IMPLAN model to convey regional inter-industry impact with input-output economic analysis, specifically by estimating how each boating-related expenditure affects each sector of the economy. Doug Lipton's use of IMPLAN found that spending by Maryland recreational boaters contributed $1.5 billion in total economic output and over 26,000 jobs to the state in 2004. On an annual basis, transient boater spending increases output by $186 million and contributes over 2,600 jobs. If 1,600 boaters from out of state who considered Maryland to boat were convinced to come, $36 million in economic output and 600 new jobs could be added to the Maryland workforce. This project is supported by funding by the Boating Infrastructure Grant Program, or BIG. BIG is funded by taxes paid by boaters and anglers, with $215 million awarded since 2000. This chart shows project funding by state in 2019. The BIG program is quite competitive. Criteria for project proposals include expanding public boating access, safety, and a high benefit to cost ratio. The DNR and BIG consider several regulations and boater preferences when approving project proposals. The Chesapeake Bay Critical Area Protection Program was enacted to help preserve the environment in light of new development pursuits, with land classified either as limited development areas, intensely developed areas, or resource conservation areas. Critical areas surrounding the Chesapeake Bay are characterized by resource conservation areas, DNR wetlands, submerged aquatic vegetation, and shellfish beds. The state tidal wetlands regulations prohibits development in areas that are shallow and where sensitive aquatic life would be adversely impacted. Maryland worked with the Environmental Protection Agency to designate no discharge zones in Herring Bay, Chester River, and the northern coastal bays, where discharge of all boat sewage is prohibited. The Maryland Clean Marina Initiative encourages boaters to adopt clean boating habits and marinas to practice pollution prevention. Around 150 Maryland marinas are certified under this initiative. A 2017 study on the impact of water quality on recreational boating site choice found that if water quality were to improve, boaters' enjoyment would also, especially for those who swim or fish. In the Lipton study using a boater survey, the importance of water quality ranked 3.72 on a Likert scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most important. On the right here, we have a picture of Baltimore's Inner Harbor and then a picture of a marina in Cambridge, Maryland. And as we can see, the water quality is very different and very apparent. Since water quality isn't always apparent, boaters' willingness to pay for improvements may be difficult to determine. The survey created for Maryland marinas will be conducted in September via cold calls to randomly selected facilities from the DNR's contacts. This spreadsheet will organize the call times and follow-ups as necessary. The data from the survey will be used to assess the unmet needs of transient boaters in Maryland. The survey itself is under 2 pages with 15 questions addressing the number of slips, the booking process, capacity response, facility features, boater activities, and upcoming expansion plans. Knowing it can be hard to get people to stay on the phone for long, The order of the questions is designed to lead with the most straightforward answers, followed by more nuanced details that may need a moment of thought. For this presentation, I'll explain each question in order of relevance to each respective topic, so there will be some jumping around. This pie chart shows most of Maryland's wet slips are in the eastern, southern, and central regions. In addition to wet slips at marinas, there are about 23,500 personal moorages in Maryland, used by almost half of Maryland's non-trailered boat owners. A study on mid-Atlantic coastal development reported that the average transient slip is visited by 5.3 different vessels during the year. The survey's first question should give us an estimated updated number of wet slips at marinas. Questions 3 and 4 will provide insight on how many of the wet slips are used for seasonal rental and how many of those could be used for short-term rental. Question 2 on the survey asks how many wet slips there are in each size category to expand upon the information documented in the U.S. Coast Guard database. These charts show the proportion of vessels by size in the country versus in Maryland. We can see here that the portion of vessels 26 feet or longer, indicated by the dotted red and gray sections, is larger in Maryland than in the U.S. overall. This project focuses on transient boating in particular, which refers to vessels 26 feet or longer taking trips that are leisure trips up to 15 days. These boats are typically non-trailered and motorized. Question 12 asks whether the facility has common utilities and amenities listed here. This list was compiled using online marina advertisements for a variety of necessary and luxury features. The recreational boating season is generally considered to be from Memorial Day to Labor Day, during which around 11% of Maryland slips are available for transient usage at least sometime. Land activity at marinas is higher from April to June, when boaters prepare their vessels for the season. In 2013, Maryland boaters took around 5 trips on the water per month, with most days spent on the water in July. Question 6 asks whether the facility ever has to turn away renters due to lack of space, and how likely this is during typical summer weekends, weekdays, and holiday weekends. Question 13 asks about common recreational activities for marina visitors to get an idea of where boaters may be spending the most money when they're traveling. A survey of Marylanders overall by Marco indicated that the most popular recreational non-consumptive activities include beachgoing, sightseeing, biking, and hiking. However, public recreational activities aren't as well monitored or documented as other waterway uses. The survey also found that most coastal trip-related expenditures were on lodging, eating and drinking out, followed by gas, with an average of $102.47 spent per coastal visit. Recreational boating isn't the same as it once was, with older generations getting out of their boats and not getting replaced at the same rate by younger boaters. However, since senior travelers tend to be more price sensitive, they could help coastal destinations fill out during off-season. Engaging future demand, effective occupancy of slips should be considered. This occurs when a slip is 100% occupied versus when a 60-foot slip is leased to a 40-foot vessel, and it is therefore only 66% occupied. Question 5 asks whether the facility accepts short-term rentals when at or over slip capacity, which depends on how versatile their wet storage is. Question 7 asks how far in advance short-term renters typically book slips, which could indicate consumer expectations of availability. If slips are oversupplied, this may lead to harbors being forced to offer discounts to new and existing boaters. The most costly aspect of adding new slips is dredging, which is removing sediment to add depth for larger vessels. However, dredging isn't funded by BIG. The chart on the right is based on a 2004 survey of marina facilities, with the most dredging needs indicated in Maryland's central region. 35% of boaters surveyed by Maryland DNR in 2004 indicated a concern with shallow channels. Question 10 asks the depth of the channel and slips at the mean lower low water. Dredging is costly to the environment as it is to marina facilities. By 2100, sea level rise is expected to cause access problems as well as loss of shoreline development. Question 11 asks when was the last time the facility's channels were dredged and whether there are any upcoming dredging projects planned. Question 9 asks whether the facility's docks are fixed, floating, or both. While fixed docks require construction to be reconfigured, floating docks can more readily accommodate transient boaters with various vessel sizes. They can adjust to high and low water conditions and can be hauled away before storms in wintertime to avoid costly damage. As we see on the right, dredging is by far the most indicated corrective action needed, followed by bulkheads, dockside utilities, and restrooms. Questions 14 and 15 ask whether there are upcoming plans to add or expand slips, utilities, or amenities, and for details if so. Question 14 expands on a previous question, asking whether the facility turns away boaters more frequently because there aren't enough slips or because the existing slips aren't large enough to accommodate the vessels. Dr. Philip Orton, an expert on wetlands mitigation, suggests that marina facility expansions should be built in small phases based on actual demand, with less new slips than around half of those on the waiting list. Since this approach depends on the use of waiting lists, question 8 asks whether the facility uses a waiting list for short-term rentals. I know that was all a lot, but the main conclusion is that expanding marina facilities has the potential to create new jobs and new economic output, especially if current demand isn't yet being met adequately. However, with increased land usage, marina development also has the potential to further harm our state's sensitive environment, which could adversely affect boating demand if not well planned and managed. The telephone survey's goals are to collect updated information on the number of slips available to transient boaters, the number of transient boating slips used, the marina amenities used by transient boaters, and the planned or needed amenities to support additional transient boating. Combined with the mail survey to boaters, the data from this telephone survey will be used to assess the potential unmet needs of transient boaters in Maryland, and in-plan analysis will be utilized to estimate the updated economic impacts of recreational boating in Maryland. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your time. This project wouldn't have been possible without funding from the Department of Natural Resources and BIG program, my supervisor and co-creator of the survey, Caitlin Ritchie, my environmental economics and policy professor and the director of the Pearl, Dr. Scott Kanaki, and the environmental education coordinator, Dr. Amanda Noblock. I would now like to open the floor for any questions.